Millinery shops like the one that we represent here at Colonial Williamsburg today challenges a lot of common misconceptions about the roles of women within 18th century society. Milliners in the 18th century represented one of the three primary fashion trades. The responsibility of the milliner was to sell all of the ornaments or complements to the wardrobe. So that would be whatever we'd classify as an accessory today. Something like an apron or a handkerchief or a set of bows or ruffles that a lady might use to complement a gown, or a gentleman's shirt, his neckwear, his hat, his gloves, his cloak, his pocket handkerchief. So all the details that complete the head-to-toe look.
A Mantua-Maker is a tradesperson specializing in the production of fitted, unstructured garments, which include things like women's gowns and jackets and petticoats, things like children's frocks, and things like gentlemen's loungewear, which includes pieces like the wrapping gown. In terms of skills that milliners and Mantua-Makers need in the 18th century, sewing is going to be paramount.
Milliners and Mantua-Makers were working primarily with textiles, and those textiles were composed of four primary fibers, so silk, cotton, linen, and wool. About 90% of the fabrics that are being used in the manufacture of garments on this side of the Atlantic would have been imported through Great Britain. Milliners and Mantua-Makers are keeping up to date with the latest fashions in very much the same way that we do today. Take social media today and minus the digital component, and it's essentially looking to the same types of sources. So milliners, Mantua-Makers might have been looking at newspapers, magazines. They'd be reading letters from family and friends back in England, keeping them up to date on the latest trends. Letters from professional acquaintances as well.
There are going to be a few different things that separate milliners and Mantua-Makers as distinct trades from the other fashion trades, one of which is who is practicing these trades. Millinery and Mantua-Making are two of the female-dominated trades in the 18th century, to the point that when men do the job, they're noted as man-milliners or man-Mantua-Makers. In Williamsburg in the 18th century, in the lead up to the Revolution, we can document about 6 separate shops of Mantua-Makers and about 5 different shops of milliners. All of the individuals who are identifying themselves as milliners or Mantua-Makers in Williamsburg in the 18th century are women. We know a lot of these shops are also being staffed with employees, journeywomen serving apprenticeships to the trade, apprentices who are currently learning the trade.
We also find a lot of enslaved women that are being apprenticed into millinery and Mantua-Making trades. They don't have the legal protections of a contractual apprenticeship, but they are learning identical skills at the same speed, in the same place, as their European counterparts would have been acquiring and learning those skills. Some of them are intending to use those skills within a single household, so the household of their enslaver. Others are being trained to work within shops, say like Margaret Hunter's, serving the public, not just in a private setting.
One of the other really big things that differentiates milliners and Mantua-Makers from other fashion trades is how we work. As Mantua-Makers, we tend to work sculpturally. We take fabric, we throw it over the shoulder and manipulate it, often on the body to fit, which produces a garment that fits really, really well, but doesn't tend to look like much off the body.
Milliners and Mantua-Makers are catering to the full spectrum of 18th century society. Women as well as men, children as well as adults, enslaved people as well as free people. Everybody needs clothes, and your milliner and your Mantua-Maker are just 2 of the 3 primary trades that are providing the 3 essential categories to dress the family head to toe. Some of those individuals would have been making purchases on their own behalf, and that includes enslaved people as well as free people. But some people would also be shopping on behalf of others. So a servant or an enslaved person within a single household might be shopping in a millinery shop to purchase things on account on behalf of the individuals within whose household they work. You also are sort of forced to deal with the nuances that are kind of inherent in that kind of community, in the sense that even behind the counter, you would have had Margaret Hunter, the English woman who owned the shop outright, working right alongside the 2 women that she enslaved. Trade spaces like millinery shops also remind us, in a way that we're really not reminded today, of how interconnected the lives of producers and consumers could be and were in the 18th century. Today we're at so many removes from the individuals, say, that are producing clothing for us, but in the 18th century you would have known the person making clothing for you by name, would have had a conversation with that person, they would have gotten to know your style, your body, your personal taste, in a way that, say, we might have a relationship with a hairdresser today who understands exactly what we're asking for every time we're there.
I I think there's a few different reasons why it's important to preserve this trade here at Colonial Williamsburg. One of which is there is really nowhere else where this trade is being practiced like this. While there are modern milliners, they do very different jobs. They focus on the production of hats, which are fantastic, but often not worn on a day-to-day basis today. Within Colonial Williamsburg, too, the job that we do is, we like to think, really useful to our colleagues because everything that we make within our trade is going on to be worn by somebody here, ideally as they do their own 18th century job. But because we're doing it in front of people, because we're getting to share that work with you when you visit, I think we end up getting to that really personal understanding of how clothes work that someone in the 18th century might have when they came into the shop to get their clothes made for them.